super excited to be here today. I have two very heavy hitters on this call with a topic of, is your business a jail sentence or a ticket to freedom? Spicy topic, but I'm sure that it's going to create some very interesting conversation. So first of all, Kel, Brett, welcome to the call.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
Thanks, David. Great to be on board.
So this whole idea of a business being a jail sentence or a ticket to freedom, maybe give us a bit of a sort of understanding how you see the world, or what gives you the sort of authority to talk on this topic. We'll start with you, Kel.
Oh, look, mate, I think with most of us, we get started in business all enthusiastic, and then all we've really done is created a job for ourselves, and if we've done that, it's probably better off just to go and get a job and not have all the stresses and worries. And so what I've been able to do myself, within my own business now, I live in Thailand. I've been in 13 countries over the last 2 years, flying all over the place, enjoying life. That's what I call freedom, and that's really what you build a business for, to be able to build a business of your dreams and do the lifestyle that you want to do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I often say to people, when you decide to go into business, it's to choose your own adventure game. And for many people, they don't see it that way. They just see it as a way of making ends meet. Or, I went into business because I couldn't get a job, or I just, I got retrenched and I had a big chunk of cash. So they've gone into business probably for the wrong reasons. But I guess the big issue is that they don't realize you get to choose which way this business goes. So, Brett, give us a bit of a background for you. You've obviously been in this game for a while as well.
Yeah, been in the financial game for over 25, 30 years, and can see a lot of businesses and even a lot of clients, be it present, past, and probably even in the future, that do go into business for the wrong reasons, or think they can do things better, or see someone else doing it more expensive, and therefore I'll just do it cheaper because then I'll get more people on board or more sales or whatever, and not really understanding what it actually means to be in business, as against just, as you said, Dave, just doing something because that's their job. But doing it for themselves rather than for someone else.
Yeah. And I guess the thing I see a lot is that whole idea of working on versus working in.
Yep.
Or, I think Kiyosaki sort of explained it really well in his cash flow quadrant book. He talked about this difference between an employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And I think a lot of people sort of fall into the trap of self-employment is a business. So they start a business based on this premise of, hey, I want to be my own boss so I can choose my own hours and choose who I work with. And self-employment sometimes is just really a jail sentence, isn't it? Because it's a job without a regular paycheck.
And it's also a bit of too is that they love to have the flexibility of, okay, well, my business is making money, so now I'll rip it out to get the benefit of it, rather than, no, it's the business's money that is, if you're pulling it out of the business, then it doesn't allow the business to strive and grow and provide that safety net for you for the future.
Yeah. So this, go on, Kel.
I was going to say as well, what happens in business when you go into that first stage of business? Yeah, like you go out of being, working for the man or working for a boss, to then having all these customers who actually then act like you got multiple bosses. All right, and so that's a real dilemma to come up with. That's still not a business. That's just having like having multiple jobs, interval to multiple people, and it gives you more of a headache. So that's not freedom.
Yeah, and I sometimes feel that before people go into business, it should be a requirement that they have a business plan.
Yeah.
And it should be a requirement that they move into an industry where they've got no intrinsic skills, because then they can't get stuck in a job. They can only run a business. And
to be honest with you, Dave, there should actually be a requirement that they do some sort of course on what it is about running a business. And that might be, whether it's TAFE or it's whatever. If you're, especially if you're going to become a director of a company, you should be doing at least a course around what does it mean to be a director? What are the liabilities, and what are the ramifications, or what are the responsibilities of, being in business?
Yeah. And I think it'd be interesting if you did that, how many people would actually decide not to go into business.
Correct. Yeah.
So let's talk about this idea, jail sentence versus ticket to freedom. What's the biggest difference? So, Kel, maybe let's hear a bit from you.
Look, I had multiple businesses where it was a jail sentence, where like up early in the morning, You know, you're scheduled by everybody else's timeline. You had no control of your life, you know, and so you just keep on working longer, harder, you know, weekends disappear. And so the jail sentence is you are literally locked, you're chained to your business and you're controlled by what's happening in the business. Where freedom, you know, like if you really want to think about freedom, what that means to you, what success means to you, you know, it's been able to do what you want to do, you know, and so, you know, like I choose to be on this call today, you know, because I really want to, what gives me passion and what gives me purpose is helping other people. And if I can do that, as opposed to, you know, I'm working for you to get money, if I can actually serve people and serve my passion and my purpose, that's freedom to me.
Yeah, fantastic. And your perspective, Brett?
Well, it's funny because I always talk about employee land against employer land or business owner land, and you can have this a bit of a wall in between the two, because employee land, you know, you have your home mortgage or whatever, and you got the stress of that. But you know, you talk about a jail sentence in business is that when you've got business debts as well as your personal debts, and you're locked down into working in the business because you're trying to get away from that jail sentence to the banks or creditors and things like that, as against, you know, if you got that ticket of freedom, you don't have any of that. You got positive cash flow, you've got everything working well for you, you've got your team on board, and you don't have the stresses of that business debt or that business risk that is all on you as the business owner and the director. And that's doesn't matter. Employees can come and go, but you can't. You're stuck. You're there.
Right. And so let's talk about this idea, right? Because obviously a lot of people go into business for the right reasons, and a lot of people go into business for the wrong reasons. But, you know, how do we make sure that it's not a jail sentence and it is a ticket to freedom? What are the first steps that people need to be thinking about? Maybe start with you, Cal.
Yeah, look, I really think it's, yeah, purpose, passion, you know, I think you've got to be clear on what is it you're trying to do. So come back to do the plan. What is the plan? What are you going to do? If you don't have that, you know, you're throwing darts at a blank wall. You know, you're going to meander around. If you haven't got a clear vision, that really is the core start, you know, and a lot of people start, as you said, and we've said before, we start for the wrong reason. But if you start with the right reason, you're on the way. And I think where it goes to next is where people, we hear a lot, oh, you've got to build systems, but nobody does. Like so therefore you just work harder again, you know? So I think that they're the barriers, like have the clear goals and then build some systems, and then you can build your team. Like that's the steps to be able to make success.
Yeah, interesting. Brett, have you any comment on that?
Well, a lot of that planning is from the start with the end in mind. What do you want this business to look like? And, you know, that planning and that process and those steps and all that type of stuff, it's going to change along the way, but also knowing at the end of the day, what the numbers don't lie. So it's planning that out as well. It's not just, you know, flying by the seat of my pants and, you know, if I get another $5 tomorrow, well, that gives me another whatever to play with. It's really sitting out and looking at the picture of, well, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
And then from that point of view, well, if you're going to retire in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and you're going to sell it, what do you actually want to get out of it? What do you want to get from that? And how do we get to that point? And looking at, you know, what's the business going to be valued at if you're doing this and this and this? But if you're still working in it and you're there day to day and you've got no one helping you, then it's worth nothing.
Yeah, they become that self-employment conundrum.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of things that are resonating with me as we have this conversation. And the first one is most employees get paid for time. And so they get educated that I spend time in a business, I get paid for my hours. And then if I convert that into a business, I still get paid for my time. But now I take the responsibility of finding the client, serving the client, collecting the money. And now I've got all these extra jobs that I don't get paid for. And so it's still time driven. And I think that's the jail sentence. Because when we talk about ticket to freedom, freedom for different people is different things. Some people want to work less hours. Some people want to work from Thailand. Some people don't want to work, right? None of those are invalid. It's just a question of what is it that you do want? Now, I think the mistake is when people go, I need to make money to get freedom. And they start with this idea of the business's purpose is to make money. And I think the business's purpose is never to make money. The business's purpose is to create value for someone who's willing to exchange money for the value.
Correct.
And then the money in the bank account is a representation of how successful you are as a business in creating value.
Yeah.
So when people are short on money, I look somewhere else. I go, look, it's not about how many sales you close. It's about other people you're selling to interested in what you offer. And if it's your time, you're going to run out of runway because there's only so many hours in the day. So this mindset between being self-employed and business owner is such a subtle difference, but it's such a, it's such a dramatic difference as well.
Yeah. And that's where it is a lot for it, David, is that are you, as you said, are you selling time? Are you selling a product? Are you selling a service? Like what is your niche and what is it about that? And again, is there an endpoint or a brick wall that stops you from selling more time? Well, there is, because there's only so much time in a day. Well, how are you then packaging that up?
Yeah, or scaling. So it could be that you actually employ people and sell their time. But that becomes an interesting shift as well, because you're not now selling time, you're selling product, and that product happens to be someone else's time. So you're still buying it at wholesale and selling it at retail. Yeah. So let's talk about this journey. So someone who feels like they're stuck in this jail sentence and they want to move to this notion of a ticket to freedom, what do they need to do? What are the things they need to do?
Well, probably sit down and spend some time on their business, on themselves to start off with is really, from our point of view, it's always, as I said, starting with the end in mind and really budgeting out, planning out, what does their business actually look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I read this, I think it was Michael Gerber in the E-Myth.
Yes.
There was a webinar that he ran and he said one thing that stuck with me, and he said, I want you to answer this question. What will your business look like when it's finished? And for most people, they puzzle and they go, what do you mean finished? I just started. I've got plenty of years in me. And he goes, yeah. Go to a builder and say, build me a house. And when the guy says, how many stories you want, say, don't worry, just start. Now, we couldn't do that. That's crazy, right? But that's exactly how most people's business plan looks.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm building. I'm just trying another client, or I just need to find another employee. It's always these incremental steps. There's no clear design. So for me, it's like, well, if we were going to finish this business as in it's running without you, that's my definition of finished. So it's either running without you, it's sold, or it's closed. I mean, they're the three options, right? Because that's the end. And work backwards, like you said, Brett, work with the end in mind. So maybe, Kel, give us a bit of insight. You've been in many, many businesses. What are the lessons you've learned about this dichotomy?
Yeah, look, the end is always a thing. So people, they just don't get there. They literally, and I've done it multiple times myself, it becomes based upon how do I fix my own personal need or my family's need. And it's about, setting a goal for, a dollar figure. And as you've said, like it is just not about that. It's about what is the lifestyle, etc. you want. And so often I made that mistake. And multiple businesses, I had a business when I was just into my 20s, got a $45 million business, and then I had I busted my back, had a big fall, and it just fell apart because I was the one doing all the driving. It was all in here, all right, and it just was not sustainable. I had no vision. I was young, and I see this in a lot of young entrepreneurs these days. I was young. Think you're bulletproof, think you're going to make, be Superman and mate, but the kryptonite comes. And and if you hit that brick wall before you're ready, if you haven't dug the well, all right, there's nothing to fall back on because everything closes down. So that was a huge lesson for me, huge lesson that I had to come out of and go, what went wrong and how do I fix that next time? And the systems, the team, getting things out of my head, how I wanted it to be, and down on paper, down into automated systems, etc. That was the absolute key for me.
Yeah, right. And for you, Brett, let's get your wisdom.
Well, a follow on from that too is that can you do it yourself? are you gonna be able to do all that yourself, or do you need partners, or do you need some investment? You know, when you're looking forward and saying, well, that's where I want to be in 5 or 10 years' time. Well, if it's mightn't just be sales that's going to get you there, mightn't be just revenue that's going to get you there. You might need an investment. You might need a business partner. You might need to, you know, go and talk to a competitor around, well, why don't we do this together? So it's not just about, you know, sitting there and going, well, I'm going to be the one that you know, makes the pens this week, and then I might be able to bring someone in next week to help me make the pens. It's, again, that strategic look at of going, well, it doesn't have to always be just your business. It could be 4 or 5 of you all together doing it, as long as you're achieving on the same page and achieving the results that you want to achieve.
Right. So really this idea of saying, well, it's not just about you, because this is the mindset of an employee, right? If it's to be, it's up to me.
Yep.
I get paid for my time. I run my own business, so I have to do everything. And I think, as you just alluded to, very quickly you realize you run out of capacity. Right.
Yeah.
If you try and do everything, you're doing $10 an hour work and $100 an hour work and $1,000 an hour work. There's only so many hours in the week.
And
I think,
sorry, Dave.
I was going to say, I think the jail sentence appears when you go, this isn't what I signed up for, but I'm stuck now because this is my only way of making income. So I need to do this, and I can't afford to pay people because there's not enough profit in it. So I'll do it myself. And, you know, it just seems to never end because it's linear. And I think that's one of the errors. I think that there's no exit strategy anticipated because people assume they're going to be able to work forever. But that's also digs the hole of, well, if I can work forever, and since I don't pay myself wages, I pay myself profit, I'm the cheapest resource, which means it's cheaper for me to do it than it is to pay someone else to do it.
Yeah. And we're gonna if you're trying to build a business and trying to get to that path of where you want to go, you got to have people along the ride with you, and you've got to trust those people.
Yeah.
You can't be, you know, bringing people in and then be over their shoulder and go, oh, no, we don't do it that way and we don't do it that way. They're there for you, but they're also there for the business, because if your main aim is in 5 and 10 years that you're going to sell it, well, they're part of the business that might then go to the new owner and continue on because they're really loving the business. It's nothing about you.
Yeah.
They love the business.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point you make there, because when we talk about vision and we talk about, you know, beginning with the end in mind, there's 2 ends, right? There's the end for the owner who built the business, and then there's the end for the business itself. And I think the trap is most people think it's the same thing. So their goal, they say, what my business will look like when it's finished is sold. And I go, great. What are you selling? My business. Yeah, but who's going to buy it? I don't know. It's too far away. So you sort of think of it and you go, well, what we need is vision for the business, because that's what you're going to sell. And that business has to have some level of value for someone to buy it, not the fact that you're trying to get rid of it, but the fact that it actually has some other potential.
Yeah, it's got having a value in the business, and building it and seeing it as, I almost see it as another person. The business is the partner. It is your partner. You know, whether you're getting other investors and other business owners involved, your business is the partner, and you've got to treat it as a separate entity. And it comes right back to what you said at the start there, Brett. People bleed the business dry for their own benefit and don't leave anything sustainable long term for the business to have an asset to sell.
Yeah, and it's amazing, Kelly, you know, on that page is also when they're either bleeding it dry cash flow wise or doing things just to get a tax deduction because they don't want to pay tax, what impact that has on both the viability of the business and also the valuation of the business. Such short-term focus kills off any long-term, you know, freedom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a very interesting topic, and so much so that we're actually going to create a workshop on this. So today was really just to understand what the problem is. And I guess the problem is that if you don't choose, chances are that your business is going to become something you hate because it's going to take you on a path of its own. And this whole idea of saying, well, if it's a ticket to freedom, we need to design that freedom because every person's freedom is different. For Kel, it's living in Thailand and, you know, enjoying the nice warm weather, 25 degrees, he reminded us at the start of this call. And for me, it's like, it's different, right? For me, my freedom is to actually express myself. I actually enjoy helping people, number one. Number two, I don't mind traveling, but I want to live here because I've got grandkids here. So the thing I guess I'm saying is that ticket to freedom, first of all, we need to understand what freedom is for the individual. Then we need to create a person, let's call it the business, that is a partner that is going to help you get to that point of freedom. So I guess two things, right? First question is, if you're going to give someone 1 or 2 hot tips on what they should do to convert their jail sentence into a ticket for freedom, what would that be? And maybe we'll start with Brett. 1 or 2 key things they should do.
The first thing for a business owner is you must budget for what is coming up. Don't worry about worry about what's happened in the past, but more importantly is what's coming up in the future. Your next 6 to 12 months is utmost importance, if not the next 3 to 5 years. And you need to financially budget for where you believe you're going to go and put some what ifs into that, in terms of, well, what if this happened, or what if this happened? That's the number one. And probably 2 is to understand, well, what is my business worth at the moment? Is it worth $5 or is it worth $5 million? And is that what I expected? Because if it's not, well, how are we going to get to where I expected?
It's interesting. So you've talked about like improving the value of the business rather than just using it as a cash cow.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. From you, Cal, 1 or 2 hot
Look,
tips for people?
For me, think of the end in mind, but the thing is with it, it's not going to be with you. The end is, you're gone at the end. So therefore, how you get things out of your head, all right, and down into a system, and do as much automation as possible. Automation means you get things duplicated perfectly, all right? So if you can duplicate yourself first and then duplicate everything else, you'll then have the freedom, you know, to do what you want and to be and do what you want within that freedom as well.
Yeah. And for me, I'm going to add something to this and suggest that most people don't think big enough with their business. Right. So all they're thinking about is, how do I get my next client, or how do I get my next month's wages paid? And when we talk about vision for business or the end, I suggest that people need to think quite large, because for me, if I'm going to sacrifice, when I start a business, I sacrifice working. Yeah. So there's an opportunity cost, which is the wage that I would normally get. And as you guys have already alluded to, the revenue of the business is not the profit of the business. And there's risk associated, and risk is not measured in dollars. And so I say to people, if you're going to go into business, you need to show me a plan that's going to generate 3 times what you're worth in the market. So if you think you're worth $100,000 in a job, show me $300,000 in potential profit out of this business over a period of time, and what your plan is to get there. Yeah. Because without that sort of buffer, because, you know, I love this saying, in business, there's no standing still. You're either growing or you're dying. And when someone shows me their P&L from last year and it's the same as the year before, I suggest they're going backwards in a big way. So I think having very aggressive vision and also having a bit of a roadmap that will take you there will certainly help people turn their jail sentence into a ticket to freedom.
Absolutely.
So look, I guess this is really wrapping up some ideas. We've got a presentation coming up on this topic, and we're going to be doing a deep dive. And as you started to understand, Kel's the systems guy, right? His job is to help people streamline and systemize their business using technology. Which is an exciting game at the moment with so much going on. And I know every time Kel gets a new thing, he goes, oh, new thing, I can integrate this and that. So we're going to be talking a bit about that. And Brett comes from a more traditional stance, which is the financial side or the accounting side. And the thing I love about that is most people aren't driving their business through numbers, right? They're driving it through emotion, and they're sort of making decisions based on how they feel. And I think the numbers don't lie. And when Brett said using budgets and doing what-if scenarios, he sort of made it sound simple. But to me, that's one of the secret sauces to success, is mapping things out and seeing what happens if we increase wages. If we employ 1 more person, what do we need to do? And how do we do that? So I know when we do this workshop, we're going to do a deep dive into these 2 areas. I'm going to spend the time talking about how to build teams, because to me, that's the best kept secret of all businesses, is don't do the work yourself. Yeah. Find someone better than you that's willing to do the work for a wage. And then you become a business owner. Now, I know it sounds altruistic and lovely, but if you start with that idea in mind, that I'll do the work while I find a replacement, at least then you've got a roadway to freedom. So, guys, look, thanks very much for coming on today and just having a bit of a chat around this. I'm super excited about this event because I know that it's going to help a lot of people revitalize their energy to actually take their business to the next level. So really appreciate your time today, guys.
Thanks, David.
Been fantastic.
Cheers.